In this video, we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting polynomials. So let's have an example. Suppose I might want to zoom in on this if I can. Okay. Suppose I've got something like this. Okay, so I have two polynomials here. There's my first one, and I'm adding it to this second polynomial inside these parentheses. So if the first one has nothing outside the first, the front of the parentheses there, you can drop them. So I can just drop those parentheses. Now the second set of parentheses, if the only thing that's in front of them is a plus sign, then I can also just drop the second set of parentheses, and I just copy down what's inside there. So in this particular example, the parentheses don't make any difference at all. Now what I'm going to have to do is to combine these. I'm just going to see if I can find a darker pen. All right, so I've got a couple of selections here. I might have one that's too dark or too thick, but we'll see. Okay, what I have to do now is I have to combine any like terms. So here I have x cubed, and I also have x cubed in here. So if I'm going to combine those two, then 17x cubed minus 9x cubed, well, 17 minus 9 is 8. And the x cubed just comes along for the ride. All right, and now I have an x squared term here, and I have an x squared term there. And if I combine these together, well, negative 10 plus 10 is 0. So negative 10x squared plus 10x squared, they cancel each other out. And then I've got plus x minus 5x. Of course, if x is by itself, then that's just the same as, as 1 times x. So x minus 5x is the same as 1x minus 5x. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. So x minus 5x is negative 4x. And that is our answer. Okay. So now let's bump up the difficulty. Let's try a new one. Let's see if we can put these together. So that's minus 11. And then that. Okay. So now I've got this polynomial, and I want to subtract it from that polynomial. If I look at the first polynomial, outside the parentheses, there's nothing here. So I can drop the parentheses. So this will equal. So I can drop the parentheses and just copy what's in there straight down. But this second set of parentheses does not have a plus sign like the previous one. And it's only if it's a plus sign by itself that you can drop the second parentheses. So we cannot. I'm going to have to do something now called the distributive property. because these are inside parentheses, this negative symbol has to come in and be applied to every term, not the first term, every term. So I'm going to have minus m to the fourth, then minus negative 6m squared. Two negative symbols, as you must know to be in this class, two negative symbols cancel each other. So I have minus negative 6, which is plus 6, and then the m squared is just coming along for the ride. And then finally, I have to apply the minus sign to 35, so I get negative 35. So that's called the distributive property, where something outside a set of parentheses has to be applied to everything inside, has to be distributed. Now I collect my like terms. So I have an m to the fourth term here, and I've got an m to the fourth term there. So negative 6m to the fourth minus m to the fourth. So if it's just by itself, it's the same as saying minus 1m to the fourth. Well, negative 6 minus 1 is negative 7. And the m to the fourth is just going to come along for the ride. So I'm done with those. And then I have some m squared terms here. Negative 11m squared plus 6m squared. Well, negative 11 plus 6 is going to be negative 5. And if you wanted to check that on a calculator, then if you want to do the negative symbol, we don't do the subtraction symbol. We use this right down at the bottom for the negative symbol. So negative 11 and then plus 6. And the answer is negative 5. So negative 11 squared plus 6, negative 11m squared plus 6m squared. Well, negative 11 plus 6 is negative 5, and the m squared is going to come along for the ride. Then 21 minus 35. Okay, and again, we can just do that in our calculators. Now I use the minus sign, the subtraction sign, and I get minus 14. So there's nothing else to combine. So that's our answer. Okay. Let's keep going. One more. Let's see if I can write it with a darker pen. So I write my z's with a little line through them so I don't get them confused with the number 2. Okay, so let's add or subtract and simplify. So this would be a typical multiple choice question on the final exam, and you've got to get it into the form of the selections where you can recognize it. So let's go to this first set of parentheses. There is something out in front. There is a 6 in front. So if there was a negative sign in front, or if there's a number in front, I have to distribute it. So I cannot just drop these parentheses and have the first term being 6z squared and not do anything to the others. That is not correct. So I've got something out the front of the parentheses. This must be distributed through. So this will be 6z squared, but I'm not finished. Then 6 times negative 5z. Well, 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. So that will become negative 30z. Then 6 times positive 3 is plus 18. So I've now distributed that. I come to this second set of parentheses, and there's something out the front of there, a negative 4. That must be distributed right through. So I cannot just drop these parentheses and say negative 12z squared and not change the rest of them. Everything inside the parentheses must be multiplied by negative 4. So I'm going to have negative 4 times 3z squared. That will give me negative 12z squared. Then negative 4 times negative 2z. Negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. And the z is going to come along for the ride. And then negative 4 times positive 9, which will be minus 36. All right, so I've dealt with that. Now, the last thing I have to do is to collect like terms. I've got a z squared term here, and I have a z squared term there. And 6 minus 12 is negative 6. So 6z squared minus 12z squared is negative 6z squared. So I've taken care of those. Now I have a z term here, and I have a z term there. Negative 30z plus 8. Well, what's negative 30 plus 8? Negative 30 plus 8 is negative 22. And so negative 30z plus 8z is going to be negative 22z. And then finally, I have 18 minus 36. So 18 and the subtraction symbol, 36, which is negative 18. And this is my final answer. Okay. Last one. Okay. Well, I look at the first set of parentheses. I have a negative symbol out the front. I cannot drop these and just apply it to the first one. I must apply whatever's out the front to every single term, the distributive property. So this will become negative 2z squared minus 3z and minus negative 1, which will be plus 1. Two negative symbols cancel each other out. Then I come to this guy. There's something out the front, so I cannot just drop the parentheses and just multiply that by the first term. This positive 2 must be distributed through everything. So this will become plus 2 times 4z squared, which is 8z squared, plus 2 times negative z, which will be negative 2z, plus 2 times 2, plus 4. Okay. Now I have to collect any like terms. It's a plus sign. So I've got a z squared term here and a z squared term there. So negative 2z squared plus 8z squared, well, negative 2 plus 8 is positive 6. So negative 2z squared plus 8z squared is 6z squared. I'm done with those. And then I have a z term here and I have a z term there. Negative 3z minus 2z. Well, negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. So negative 3z minus 2z is minus 5z. And then the last thing to do is combine those. So 1 plus 4 is 5. And that's my answer for that one. Okay, so that concludes this video on adding and